Welcome to Level Up, a podcast for independent artists navigating the Asian music industry. I'm your host, Giselle Koh. I'm a music journalist, the founder of platform Asian Pop Weekly, and an all-around Mandopop nerd. Join me in taking control of your career as an artist, and I'll show you how to make the most of it. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Level Up. So today we're going to be talking about something which is very close to my heart, I guess. Like, it's just a topic that I think is so important to artists all around. But it's one that also I think people discount a lot, or they feel like it takes too much work and then sometimes just give up altogether. And so that topic is social media. So I just wanted to share with everyone my thoughts on it and how especially I think you should think about social media if you're an artist or like a musician, because I think you could really end up having fun with it and actually creating more value when you perceive it as something like valuable to you, rather than seeing it as like a waste of time or like a superficial way to engage with fans. So as I said, here's the thing about social media. It's an essential part of your role as an artist, because if you think about it, even your lack of social media use, when done correctly, of course, it can establish your branding and your positioning as an artist. So I see a lot of artists and work with a lot of artists who feel constrained by the regimented and time-consuming routine by which they have to use social media, because they think that engaging and interacting to keep those likes and follows coming in, it stifles their creativity. But here's the thing, technically you don't have to do anything. No one's making you do anything. But if you as the artist, the primary creator of your content, are unwilling to put in the work, then especially as an independent artist, where, as I said in previous episodes, you're the one who's creating your brand, you're the one who's creating your vision. And if you're unwilling to create that vision and put it out on social media, then the buck stops with you. And by doing this, you're sending out a clear message from the get-go that you don't want to create engaged, authentic relationships with people who truly use their music. So instead of feeling dragged along by the social media grind, I want you to change your perspective and take control of your presence on social media. Because to me, there's just something so empowering about understanding the platform you're using and that you're using on your own terms to your advantage. I know, like, recently there have been documentaries like The Social Dilemma, which I've also watched, and definitely there are so many problematic things about privacy on social media and like how it changes people's habits. But to me, assuming that everything you're sharing on your artist profile is something you'd publicly be willing to share, then like, why not try and make the most of it? Because at the end of the day, this is how people communicate nowadays. This is the main way where your target audience is going to be interacting with your content. That aside, here are my best tips for like getting yourself into the right mindset to tackle your social media presence. Number 1, figure out which platforms work for you and which just don't. So if you find Facebook posts time-consuming and not that engaging for your target audience, then maybe you should post key updates on there, but include other platforms you're more present on as part of your key strategy instead. Number 2, learn everything you can about the platforms you're honing in on. As I said before, even if you don't want to use a platform or you don't want to use social media entirely, I still think it's a very good idea to at least be informed on why you're taking that action and how it relates to your brand strategy overall. But I mean, for most artists, I think social media is still a very important part of the strategy. So I would suggest checking out some cool artists that you really like with like very interesting social media presences that you can reference from or learn from, or even check out a few articles or like YouTube videos about neat social media tricks to help you level up. Number 3, play. There is no better way to learn than using the platform. I actually find great joy in toying with Instagram story in particular and like finding out hacks for how to easily create posts that suit my needs, maybe by learning how to paste backgrounds onto Spotify shares or using the poll functions to engage people in a way that's really specific to my brand and what my audience likes. Although there are only like maybe, okay, say with Instagram story, there are only like 10 to 15 features, but the possibilities for how you can use them in different combinations is actually endless. And I think there are so many ways that you could customize it to fit your needs if only you are willing to try. Number 4, fail fast and keep going. I feel like a short period of inconsistency and like going super deep into like experimentation mode is forgivable on social media because people like basically have the memory of a goldfish nowadays. And I think that social media as a content medium, it's still very disposable as opposed to like a song or like a music video or something like that. But you should use that to your advantage. Experiment with it as much as you can until something sticks, and don't be afraid to fail. Do it fast, get it over with, and once you've found what works, then hopefully it's smooth sailing at least for a bit. Number 5, keep it consistent. Although we did say people have like goldfish for brains, or goldfish brains, that's also why you should keep your brand consistent in order to keep it intact, to drill the message into their brains time and again. So once you found your angle or thing on social media, definitely keep at it. And finally, number 6, regroup and reevaluate. Keep an eye on those stats, on the engagement of the post you're doing different, and try and compare it with engagement of previous posts to find out if it's working or not. Whether or not it works, you should look at it from a couple of different angles as well. Like maybe it is working, but it's taking too much time, or maybe it's just not working, like everything's just falling flat on its face. Like, but you really need to look at it from like a various different angles in order to really evaluate what is going to work to your time schedule and everything. Remember to keep coming back and evaluating your strategy because things change and you can't keep doing the same thing forever anyway because I think your audience might get bored. So if your strategy isn't efficient or effective, then it's time to switch things up again maybe. And I just wanted to go a little bit more into depth about when I talked about whether something is working or not, like the metrics for success when we're talking about this. I think you should think past the numbers because actually numbers like engagement or like the number of comments or number of shares, it's just one of several metrics to show whether something is working or not. And as an artist, actually, for me, it's always important to go back to your positioning and evaluate whether the content you're creating is on brand for you in the first place. Because if you're creating a brand and getting in audiences who really long-term aren't going to be that sustainable or like even that interested in what you're trying to do, then you're just wasting time. And like these fans or like these listeners might not be as valuable as like maybe a smaller batch who are really engaged with your content maybe. So to give you a couple of examples of like metrics that you could look at other than numbers, as I said before, time. I think that is a really important metric to me, especially when I'm working on social media. Is the amount of time spent on social media proportionate to the value that you're getting out of it? Think about the deep conversations you've initiated. That might be another metric as well. Like how many people and how engaged are they with like the topic at hand and like what value is that creating. For example, I actually just saw someone who was inspired enough by our podcast, Huang Tingzhi. She's a Singaporean artist. You should totally check her out. And she just launched her own podcast from that. And to me, that's really special because like I just started this podcast and we don't have that many listeners because we just started out anyway. But the fact that I was able to encourage an artist enough to like do something on her own and like really be creative, that's something that's super valuable to me, maybe even more valuable than like having 1,000 more listeners, you know? So that's also another metric that you could think about, like creating those really like engaged conversations with people that really would propel your brand or like, I guess, just fulfill you as an artist creatively and make your use of social media a sustainable action. And also think about, I guess, like how you feel in the whole process, because at the end of the day, you're still a creative, you're still a content creator. And for me, social media comes down to being sustainable. So you also need to think about like, does doing this excite you? Like, is it tiring you out? Is it making you burn out? Is it making you unable to like put too much time into creating like actual music, which is where everything should come from in the first place? Because it shouldn't really be a chore. It should be something that's exciting and builds on top of your music. Does it feel like a sustainable long-term endeavor that you can manage? So these are some of the metrics that I think you should think about when you're evaluating your strategy. But I guess at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is you should use social media your way. You shouldn't let it control you. So that's why I think it's really important to educate yourself, feel it out, and like find what works for you. Because as I said, there are so many different platforms, so many different ways of using those platforms that you could play with, and so many types of different content that you could create in order to get your message out there and express it exactly in the way that you want. And in that journey of figuring out what works, always remember that when you're defining your successes, numbers aren't everything. Anyway, that's it for our first social media spiel. But in the next episode, we're going to be talking about something that's really exciting to me, which is looking into a couple of artists who have like social media strategies who are just on point. And we're going to be digging deep into like the kind of content they're creating, the way they use the platform, and what's so interesting about it. So we hope that you'll tune in for the next one. And also just a quick note, our worksheets are no longer available free via our mailing list. So if you'd like to get your hands on this month's materials, do subscribe to our Patreon page, Level Up Tier, for the show notes and also a social media strategy roadmap. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. The Level Up podcast is brought to you jointly by Blossoming Bridge Creative and Asian Pop Weekly. Be sure to follow on our socials at Asian Pop Weekly, and also check out our website if you're looking for more Mandarin or Asian music content. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and we'll see you on the next one.